Morning everyone, I'm Alex McCormack and this is my Fairlight Secan 3.0 which I've been using so far this year, and in a couple of weeks time I'm going to be flying out to the Traka adventure to race the 560k, but obviously not in this setup. So yeah, this is the setup. As a few highlights, I'll be running the DT Swiss GRC 1100 wheels. So they're sort of a deep section carbon wheel, but they only weigh just under 1300 grams. So they're still pretty lightweight as there's a decent amount of climbing. So I've set those up with the Vittoria Terreno dries in a 45mm. So again, I've gone for sort of maybe a slightly wider tyre, but one that's still got a low profile centre tread to help with rolling resistance, and a good sort of side profile for any of the cornering on sort of the slightly rougher gravel. To set those up, I've used the Stan's race sealant, which is sort of their high-end sealant with extra bits in, which seals bigger holes, and so far, fingers crossed, I found it pretty good at sealing any sort of regular holes you get. So yeah, so following on from that, sort of group set wise, I've got the GRX 1x, I think it's the 800, and that's paired with an XGR 1051 rear cassette. So again, the XGR cassette's just a slight bit of weight saving. Got a pretty big dog chainring on there. It's a 46 tooth, which is the biggest that will fit this frame, and it's the wolf tooth aero ring. So again, sort of has that aero advantage, but also looks pretty trick. It's also narrow wide, so that should help with any issues of dropping chains. I've got the Garmin Rally XE100 power pedals, so I like to keep on top of power numbers throughout the ride. So sort of for this sort of effort, you know, I'll be aiming to sort of stay just below sort of my LT1, lactate 1 threshold. So it's just nice to have those reading, and also just the numbers to look at afterwards and to sort of keep on top of the effort. Contact points, so I've got the Celitalia Boost S3 SLR 3D, so that's the 3D printed saddle, and so far I've just found that sort of works for me. It's a nice fit, it's not too wide, it's not too long, it's not too short, and yeah, it's a good fit, and so far no issues, so I'm going to keep riding that. And also it's got the carbon base and the tie rails, so again, pretty lightweight to help with the climbs, and that's on a FSA carbon seat post. And then for the cockpit, and I quite like to keep my cockpits minimalist and pretty tidy, so I've got the USE carbon gravel bar. They're in 400mm wide, and I like to have the hoods turned in a bit, just to sort of get that frontal area as narrow as possible for those aero gains. And it's got the narrow sweep on the handlebar, so I think it's a 12-degree sweep, so there's not too much of a flare on that. And again, I just sort of like the feeling of my road bike, and sort of for the Spanish gravel, which is all pretty smooth, I don't need too much extra width for control on the descents. And I've decided to pair that with the Redshift race stem, so I've inverted that, so that's in its like negative setup to try and get the front end as low as possible. But just having that bit of suspension up front keeps the feeling in the fingers good, and it sort of stops the hands numbing, and sort of stress through the arms is pretty nice. And on the stem, I've used the exposure stem mount to mount the Toro light up front. So it's not the biggest light, it's not the smallest light, but I think for one night on the gravel, it should have enough battery life and enough brightness. And I've got the exposure boost rear light, which again has more than enough battery life to last the 24 hours or just over 24 hours for the race. I'm also going to be running the USE aero bars, so they're the carbon aero bars, and I've cut those right down to make them sort of more into like a mini aero bar sort of configuration. And I've got profile design aero bridge, which I actually run upside down, and the reason for that is it enables me to keep that element ace really tucked in and sort of out the way, out the wind, and like just looks nice and neat. I also have used a bit of skateboard sort of grip tape up front to set up around for Atlas. It worked well there, so I'm going to replicate it. I've got the Chris King headset, that's the same as was on my old model bike. Never been serviced, never been touched, still running pretty strong, so you know, I trust that thing with my life. So yeah, for packing my stuff, I'm going to be using the tailfin bags compared to the usual stuff I've been racing. It's quite a short one, so I'm going to go pretty minimalist. So I've got a tailfin wedge bag up front, which is sort of just about big enough to fit a bit of a toolkit and a few extra clothes. So the Albion the new Albion vest, a couple of tubes, tyre lever, stands, dart, tyre plugs, a multi-tool and a pump and a CO2. And then I've got the long top tube bag, but the narrower one, so it doesn't impede too much. And in there is pretty much exclusively Fuel Plus stuff. So I've got the oat bars, the gummy bars, the gels, and I've got a power bank and a cable just to charge my phone in, just in case. So yeah, that's it. That's the bike I'll be running.